Good evening. It is March 10th, Monday night, and we are starting a series on every single championship week tournament in college basketball. Not every single. We're only going to do the big 4 or 5 or 6, but I can say that anyway. We start with ACC, where Virginia won the regular season. Syracuse stumbled late. Duke has sort of come into their own, and North Carolina has been the most inconsistent team in the country, you could argue.
But they play well against good teams.
And every single good team they've played against, they've played well.
They played well, yeah.
And so pretty much you're looking at Virginia, UNC, Syracuse, Duke in the semifinals. Do you see anyone giving any of those teams a problem in those earlier rounds, the quarterfinals?
In the quarterfinals, I don't really think so. I think Pitt has a chance to
that 5-4 matchup.
Yeah, that 5-4 matchup. Yeah.
Anyway.
Other than that, unless Virginia, doesn't
if they play
recover,
Maryland again, that would be funny.
Yeah, exactly. If they don't recover from that bad loss to Maryland, then they could have some troubles. But I don't know. I think I see them just recovering and making a strong, tournament.
Yeah, too bad Maryland didn't wait and beat them this week when it matters instead of next week. But I think in terms of the NCAA tournament, I think that Pitt definitely needs to win their first game to get in. If they lose to UNC in the quarterfinals, if they win that game, they're in. Yeah. If they don't win that game, they're still on the bubble a little bit. But all the other teams would need to almost upset 2 of those top 4 teams if they want to get in.
I don't really see that happening at all, though.
Clemson and
NC
State would have to beat Duke and Syracuse to get to the final to get in to the tournament, and everyone else including Maryland and FSU would have to win the whole thing to get that at large.
Yeah,
not at large, automatic.
Yeah, this is the time where a lot of teams, they kind of get to say, look, everybody's 0-0 now. We're just playing for, playing in advance, really, and
survive in advance. That's how my coach puts it.
Right, and so you're gonna see a lot more teams. I think playing with more, fire and passion or more. I can't think of the goddamn word.
Intensity.
More confidence. More confidence against better opponents. Because everybody's on the same playing field, basically. So.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to a little bit who wants it more. Like, in basketball, on any given day, anyone can beat anyone else.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's been proven throughout the course of the years. There hasn't been a 116 upset. There won't be. That'd be a shocker. But there have been 2 15 upsets, especially recently. The difference between the 15 seeds and the 2 seeds has shrunk a lot in the past 10, 15, 25 years. Just because there have been more 2-15 upsets in the past years than in the past 5 years than there have almost in the rest of college basketball history, tournament history.
I think that for one of these other teams to make a deep tournament run for the ACC tournament, I think the formula was kind of set by that UConn team led by Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
They have that one star that can just kind of put the team on his back
get buckets.
and just get buckets.
And then they play Team D.
Right,
They play with passion. They play with intensity. Another good example was Ole Miss Rebels of last year's SEC. They just took that tournament. And, Kentucky didn't make the tournament. They weren't that good.
Mm-hmm.
Florida was not as good as it was this year. They were an Elite 8 team, though. That's a big deal. Yeah. And Marshall Henderson just took it to them. They couldn't stop the single score, and that's very valuable. Okay, so let's get into the meat of things. Who do you have winning this thing or playing in the final or whatever? Syracuse-Duke, likely matchup because you don't see any upsets in North Carolina-Virginia.
Between Syracuse and Duke, I see Duke edging them out. Syracuse has been really struggling of late. They aren't very deep. Obviously they have their experience with CJ Fair and some of their other guys, but and they have a stud in Tyler Ennis. So I don't just completely count them out, but
and those 2 games this season were unbelievable. They each won their home game. Can't wait. And some have argued that they won the home game because it was on the home court because it was the home refs. So the neutral floor is going to be interesting.
But I think the difference is that right now Duke is kind of on the upswing and Syracuse has been on the downswing.
And I think,
it wasn't like that in the other 2 times they played. They were both kind of still riding.
Well, yeah. Well, the first time they were both pretty high. Syracuse was higher than Duke. They were undefeated. But second, they were both coming off losses. So it was expected. How they played was what I expected. Defensive, we don't want to lose mentality. And that's how you're going to get these conference tournament games, not as more so than the NCAA tournament games. The NCAA tournament games, you're going to have some teams that just want to run and gun. But these conference tournament games are going to slow things down. They're going to make it very possession-oriented, especially at the end of games. And I think that's where the scores come in, the Jabari Parkers, the Andrew Wiggins, even Tyler Ennis. This Syracuse-Duke game is going to be epic, but I'm more confident picking Duke over Syracuse than I am picking one of the Virginia
if it's going to be as good of a game as the other 2 were. I
think it'll live up to expectations. And those expectations are so high, so it could be impossible that it does, but these teams are too good, these coaches are too good not to have it be a great game. My opinion.
I agree that everything's kind of set up for that, except for the fact that Syracuse has not been playing well, and Jabari Parker I think has just been balling, and I think that's the difference right there, and he kind of, with his great play, he kind of just lifts his team up, and that's what great players do, and he's been showing that of late, where he can, they can start throwing it to him in the post, and he can just score, man. He reminds me so much of Melo. It's crazy.
CJ Fair?
No, Jabari Parker.
Yeah, Jabari Parker. Funny thing is, he plays 5. So
well, he plays 5 for Duke.
Sometimes. No, yeah, that's what I mean. For Duke, sometimes he plays 5, and that makes their team scary.
Oh yeah,
because you're not gonna outcoach Coach K. So he's somehow gonna find that matchup and use it to his advantage. And Jabari Parker is a mismatch for everyone if you're in the college game. The only person that can probably guard him is probably Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins doesn't give the effort on defense that he should, but I'm talking just about talent and size and quickness. But the Virginia UNCA game, I think that I still just am not that high on Virginia. They won the ACC outright the regular season, and I'm gonna watch their ACC tournament games because these are gonna be a big tell for me as to who they are, because I feel like they snuck up on some teams in the ACC, and there's North Carolina, Duke, and Syracuse. And Syracuse was undefeated, so you want to beat them. Duke is Duke, so you want to beat them. And North Carolina's struggling, so you want to take that advantage and beat them. So all those 3 teams you play hard, but then Virginia was just like, hey, like, we're better than you. You're not going to play as hard as us. Like, and they had an easier road through the regular season than the other 3 teams did. But I can't pick them very solidly over UNC. I have them advancing if I had to pick over UNC. But I think UNC, what makes them so dangerous, we always come back to guard play in college basketball. Marcus Page is a stud.
Yeah,
an underrated stud, and he was not talked about at the beginning of the year. Yeah. And I think that's going to be not as good of a matchup as Duke UNC, but it could be a better game.
I agree that this will be a better game.
It could also end up being a bad game. I think that the possibility that Syracuse-Duke is a bad game is lower than the possibility that Virginia
that might be true.
UNC is a bad game, but I think the probability that Virginia-UNC will be a good game is higher than the chance that Duke-Syracuse will, if that makes sense
at all.
I might have just confused you, but we can cut that out if we have to.
Yeah, that's right. I think I'm a lot higher on Virginia than you are. Just seeing them play Syracuse at the end of the year.
I missed that second half.
And kind of watching them at the end of the year and watching them they play as a team so well, and they just picked apart that Syracuse.
And I think
they're very well coached.
They were 14-1 going into that game, and that game was to clinch it. And that was Syracuse's chance to get back into it. Mm-hmm. So. And they blew them out. I mean, they were up by 15 at one point, weren't they? Or am I wrong?
It was.
They were kicking their butt at one point. Yeah. So.
I think.
So do you have them winning the tournament?
I think
the ACC tournament.
If I had to choose somebody, it'd either be Duke or them, and in that game,
I think that's your final, Duke and Virginia.
Yeah, that's my final. It's so tough, but. I think I have to give the edge to Duke, actually.
Neutral court, best player, best coach.
Best player, best coach, and
it's hard.
Yeah, it's. Virginia, I think time and time again has, surprised people when they probably shouldn't have been a surprise.
Yeah.
But they might be the best team in this tournament, but they're not the best. I don't know if they're the best on any given night.
And at this time of the year, you got to be the best on that given night.
Right.
And that's less than being the best on the team. I just want to say these. There's 5 ACC tournaments in Joe Lunardi's bracket. North Carolina's 4, Duke is 2, Virginia's 3, Syracuse is a 3, and then Pittsburgh is a 10. So you've got 3 top 4 seeds and then a 10. I think Syracuse is pretty stuck at a 3. I think they could jump up to a 2 if they win the tournament. I think Duke could jump up to a 1 if they win the tournament, depending on what happens to Villanova, Kansas, Arizona, Florida, and Wichita State's already locked their 1 up. They're 34-0. But I don't see Virginia moving up above a 2 either, and it's weird not having an ACC team after Syracuse moves into it as a number 1 overall seed when it's sort of been an exchange between Duke and Syracuse and Virginia the whole year,
But I think that kind of
fourth
goes,
number 1 seed is up for grabs.
That goes to show how good of a conference the ACC is.
Yeah.
Top
to bottom.
Yeah, top to bottom. I mean,
yeah.
That you just get
you sleep on a night and you're going to lose.
Exactly. You get these teams that are coming in, and I don't know what I was saying. We'll cut this part out.
Okay, so we both have Duke winning the tournament.
Right.
For Jabari Parker, for Coach K, for neutral floor. If it was at Virginia, I'd probably have to pick Virginia. It's not though.
I agree.
And they were unbelievable on their home floor, especially in ACC tournament play. They lost at Maryland, and I think their first loss was on the road too. Right. But I think that the ACC is pretty straightforward in that those top 4 are going to be in the semifinals, and they're going to be great games, and the final's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
And all 4 of these teams have a chance to get to the Elite 8. I mean, North Carolina would have to beat Florida, and they're not going to do that. But Duke.
My only argument for North Carolina making it to the Elite 8, something like that, would be because of how well they played against good teams, and that's all you're facing now is good teams. I mean, the first round maybe there's some bad teams versus good teams, but after that, really, you're not getting a whole lot of seeing any bad teams in the NCAA tournament. And UNC always picks themselves up for that.
And I can't stress enough the importance of not only guard play but point guard.
Yeah.
Think of the teams that have made runs in the tournament and had great point guards. Kemba Walker won the national title. I mean, not by himself, but he was the guy.
By himself.
Trey Burke got to the final game. He wasn't by himself.
Yeah, and who were they playing? A Syracuse team led by Michael Carter Williams.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then in the final, they lost to Louisville, who
had Peyton
Siva and Russ Smith.
On the Pistons now, my boy.
So guard play. That's why I think North Carolina is scary in the tournament. But I don't see this ACC tournament affecting the NCAA tournament that much. It'll be fun. There'll be 3 really good games in the quarterfinals and the final, and then there'll be some good games before that.
Yeah.
And I think that Duke has the best shot to get to the Final Four. It really depends on matchups, but I think Jabari Parker makes a big impact to me, and Coach K. I mean, whenever I'm like half and half on a pick, coaches is a decision that I think about. Not if it's 2 coaches I don't know, but if it's Coach K versus another team of equal magnitude that's not Coach K,
I think the team that will rely most heavily on matchups or will be affected the most by matchups in the NCAA tournament will be Duke, just because they're having
small.
Jabari Parker playing the 5.
They're
small. If there's any sort of big inside presence, I'm not sure how well they can handle that. And
Plumlee's going to play a lot if they get that, isn't he? I don't know if I want that if I'm a Blue Devil.
Do you really want Plumlee on the court? The worst
Plumlee by far.
Yeah.
I mean, the other Plumlees were good.
We're solid. Yeah, they're all
ACC
careers.
Conference Players of the Year. Not first team, but third, second team.
Yeah.
So the ACC is pretty straightforward. It's a very, very stacked conference at the top, and it's underrated for how up and down it is too.
Yeah, and look for those semifinal and championship games on Saturday and Sunday. They should be very, very good games.
And there'll be a lot of games this Saturday and Sunday, and we will get you ready for them and the NCAA tournament. Stay with us. Glad to talk to you. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.